Live, right? You are live. We're live.
Great.
Hello,
Hey,
Dr.
Dennis.
Meneghini. How are you?
Doing great, Dennis. Happy Thursday morning
Happy.
to you. How are you doing?
It is Thursday. That's right. I am in Boston. I'm coming to you live from Boston this morning. And normally I live
Awesome.
in Mexico, but I'm visiting my brother. And you and I had this opportunity to get together. So I was like, you were like, let's wait till you get back home. And I said, no, this is what the new world is about. It's like about having these live, candid conversation, open conversations in front of people, so they get to know who you are. So here we are. And where are you?
Perfect. In Noblesville, Indiana, I'm sitting inside the Indiana Orthopedic Institute, our flagship facility. So I'm in one of the conference rooms here, working for the day. It's
Awesome.
good.
And that actually is a great segue
It
to jump
is
quickly into
right
what
into it.
is your facility. Let's talk about who you are, what you do. For those that don't know, that are just tuning in to Dr. Michael Meneghini, who are you and what are we talking about
Yep.
here?
Yeah. So thanks, Dennis, for the opportunity to talk about it. Yeah. So I'm a hip and knee replacement surgeon, and we built. I've been in practice 21 years. Was at a large health system, the largest med school in the United States, which you can imagine how big that is. I was full professor there, and about 4 years ago, decided to take a leap and start our own vertically integrated model because I really saw the way healthcare was moving. Healthcare was moving in what I do in musculoskeletal health and care. A portion of it, like sports medicine, was already out of the hospitals and in more outpatient settings, the ambulatory surgery centers, offices, et cetera. But we started seeing hip and knee replacement start to move from the hospitals out. Some spine surgeries moved from the hospitals out. And so we saw this migration, and I began to think, well, I want to be where the world is going, not where it's leaving. And so, which is going to be our topic about what the role of hospitals are, because they're going to have a role. It's just, what does that role look like? I think that's what people are trying to understand. So we took millions of dollars and a lot of time and effort. But we built a vertically integrated ambulatory surgery center it's called the Indiana Orthopedic Institute. It has 4 operating rooms. It has a clinic above it, physical therapy, perioperative testing. So we call it vertically integrated because if you're a patient and you come here for your orthopedic care, from soup to nuts, you get everything here. You don't need to leave our musculoskeletal ecosystem to get anything else done for your orthopedic care, really. And so that's, I think, the power of what we built, and the patients feel it. We're very customer, I would call it customer, because we learned from Ritz-Carlton, Disney, those sort of things. We want to give patients the experience you get if you're one of the customers of the Ritz-Carlton or Disney or whatever, right? That same experience. Because I've been passionate about the fact that that doesn't exist in healthcare. If you go to a hospital, it's not uncommon that you're going to get asked no less than 5 times if you have allergies or what meds you're on. And when you go to a Ritz Carlton, which I was only able to afford to go to when I finally turned 37 and I proposed to my wife, you don't have to ask. They know everything about you, and they've gotten it once in their system, and they don't ask you again. Now, hospitals may say it's under the guise of safety, or we got to double check or triple check. But once it's in the computer system and it says you have no allergies, you don't need to ask me anymore. Like, let's focus on the things now, treat my illness, focus while I'm there, et cetera. So that's what we built at the Indiana Orthopedic Institute. And we really look at models like the Ritz Carlton on how to provide a better patient and family experience. So
Awesome.
that's what we built.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know that there's probably a lot of our listeners, mostly your listeners, are in the medical healthcare community. But for those who are not, let's explain the difference between a hospital and an ambulatory service center, which is what you're talking about here. So I think it's important because I think that's going to lead us into the conversation that we're going to have.
Yeah, and the lines are blurring, Dennis. It's a great question. So, like, if you take Indianapolis, the market I know the best is where I live. You have a variety of healthcare ecosystems. You have large hospital systems, and there's a bunch of them. We call them sort of the big 4 or 5 here, and they own a bunch of hospitals. Many of them employ physicians, and they're large ecosystem, but they're centered around hospitals. Some have some ambulatory surgery centers. But what's interesting is some of those ambulatory surgery centers are actually called hospital outpatient departments. They bill they bill you as the patient, and they bill the insurance company or the employer, whoever, as an extension of the hospital. We're going to get into that in a minute. There's also physician-owned hospitals here, like Ortho Indy. They are a large group. They own their own hospital. That was during the Obama administration in 2008. They put a moratorium on that. It's fine if you had a physician-owned hospital before that, you could continue, but that they made it illegal for physicians for whatever reason. Don't ask me why. Probably large hospital lobbying groups stop physicians from owning it, because why let a physician who knows how to provide patient care, why would they ever own a hospital? I mean, that makes I mean, how could we possibly know more about treating patients than an administrator? Okay,
Right.
whatever. I mean, you just to say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but that's what the government did in 2008.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, so so yeah, so here we sit, and then we have, like us, where we did, and I think Ortho Indy was really innovative 25 years ago when they built their hospital and did that ecosystem. They did what the world called for in 2000, 2001, 2002. Great, innovative. Now, I think what we have done is we've built in the same ecosystem, but we are a freestanding ambulatory surgery center. We have hospital partnerships throughout the state. They're important. Hospitals are important. But the world, and it's not, when I say the world, all the stakeholders in healthcare are moving things out of hospitals. And so, because hospitals have a large layer of bureaucracy, they're expensive, and we'll get into that in a minute. So that's sort of the three sort of camps you have, where you perform surgical procedures and where you perform medical visits. You have a hospital setting, you have a hospital outpatient department, and then you have truly outpatient private practice typically, but outpatient facilities. So think of those three buckets, and they are three levels of expense. So if you walk into a hospital that has a medical office building where you may go see a cardiologist or an orthopedic surgeon or whoever, if you're in the hospital and you go get an EKG, you go get labs drawn, you get an examination, that has a hospital price tag to it.
Sure
If
does.
you go, right, and so if you go see me in this building I'm sitting in, you're going to get a very different price. We'll charge less to the Blue Cross Blue Shields, to the Uniteds, to the government, to CMS, to Medicare. We have a different price that we charge. And then your next question you should ask, if I go into Subway and there's a Jimmy John's next door, what I'm saying to myself is, if I go in and get the same Italian BMT sub that I like from both places, should I be paying markedly one way more than the other? Am I getting when I eat that sandwich, I'm like, wow, it's so much better. That's the fundamental question that healthcare consumers are asking now. And it's more prevalent now, Dennis, because as the employers in the economy are bearing more of the healthcare premiums, the patients are bearing more of the healthcare premiums. We're seeing more patients say, you know what, I'm not going to get health insurance. I'm just going to pay out of pocket as I go because these premiums are so expensive. Now
Right.
they're really becoming consumers. So
Yeah.
now they're looking at, where do I go get my doctor evaluation? This is all happening in real time, more so this year in 2026 than ever before. And I think it's a trend that's going to keep going for a while. So it's fascinating to see consumerism come a little bit into the healthcare space.
It is, yeah, because it kind of needs to change, right? And I
I
think
agree.
you and I had a meeting or had one of these lives maybe 6 months ago now or so. I forget what it was, but we talked about it's like these hospitals are building these $4 billion centers, and they're not curing anything. They're just these mega centers. They don't pay any taxes. They're billing out insane amounts of money, and with people like you were just talking about. I mean, like how much isn't it like $30,000 a year for a family of four to have insurance or something like that? It's
It
like
can be,
insane.
it depends on what pre-existing conditions you have, et cetera. But yes, it can be very, very expensive. And it is tens of thousands of dollars to have health insurance. And so
Right.
people are saying, look, younger generations are saying like, I'm not going to get sick. And if I do, I'll pay out of pocket for it. I
Right.
think that's very reasonable.
It is, yeah. And then so that kind of leads us to the conversation is like, okay, so we have these ambulatory service centers, which it sounds to me like is definitely going to be the future. And it seems to me, not only is it going to be the future, especially for the if you don't have like terminal illnesses or anything, but it's almost like a new business model. I think people are going to hop on, and now they're going to be like franchise or ambulatory service centers, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. So, very interesting. So, there was an article released today where one of the largest health systems in the United States, Ascension, they paid a lot of money in the billions to acquire a company called AmSurge, which is an ambulatory surgery center company. And they have clearly made their bet to not build more hospitals. They're going to invest in and I think it's very progressive for Ascension. I give them huge credit to their leadership to say this is where the world is going. And so now they've made a bet on the ambulatory surgery centers, and they even said publicly they want to invest in the ambulatory surgery centers that physicians can be owners in. Whoa.
Okay.
All right. So talk about bringing the physician back into the equation. I applaud Ascension for that. I think you'll see that physicians find Ascension very favorable now when they're speaking like that versus some hospital systems are like, nope, physicians should be employees. They should show up, punch in, punch out. You shouldn't own anything. We'll pay you what we think you deserve and do your work and move on. So I think it's very interesting times. And we'll have to see if the big health systems, some of the other health systems see Ascension do that and like, well, maybe we should rethink our strategy. I hope they do. Because I think there's no doubt that's a good strategy. And the other thing that's happening, Dennis, um, for those who don't know, the way healthcare works in the United States, and in terms of hospital and ambulatory surgery centers, there's this thing called the inpatient only list. The inpatient only list was created by Medicare, CMS. It's our government's arm of healthcare, provide insurance for Medicare beneficiaries. The inpatient only list said certain procedures must be done in hospitals. You're like, right. Well, 20 years ago, that may have been appropriate for hip and knee replacement. Now the majority of them can be done in ambulatory surgery centers. Very different 20 years ago. So they've had to update the list. And so now, January 1 of this year, they took about 285 of the remaining musculoskeletal procedures, including spine and hip and knee replacements, and including revisions, and they pulled them off. So that was step one. Step one says now the government says, okay, wait a minute. You can have your hip or knee replacement done in either an ambulatory surgery center like Indiana Orthopedic Institute, or you can have it done in a hospital. We'll let the market decide. We'll let the doctor and the patient decide where that should be done based on risk factors and things. So we're 97% of our primary hip and knee replacements, first time hip and knee replacements, we do in our building. And there's 3% for other reasons, real complexity, psychosocial issues where patients they don't have anyone at home. We know they need a rehab stay. A small percentage go to the hospital. But I think the future is largely hip and knee replacement are now going to be out of the hospital. So it brings the question back, Dennis, to what is the role in the future of hospitals? Hip and knee replacements traditionally were all done in hospitals during my early training and most of my career. Now they're out. A number of other procedures can now be done safely out of a hospital. Technology improves, healthcare improves. It begs the question, what should be done in hospitals? And that's going to be what we're going to be looking at over the next 10 years. What is the role? They're building $6 billion buildings.
And that's
So,
insane. It's so crazy. And they keep doing it. And you would think that with the intelligence behind all of that, that they would have, and maybe they are using intelligence to predict something that we don't see yet, because why would they keep throwing $5-6 billion at a project?
yeah, I think they're going to see the market. I think some of these smaller rural hospitals are going to end up closing.
Yeah, it have
The
to.
ones out in the community that's got different, they're going to close. And so these large health systems will be the predominant hospitals. And that's where all the patients who are sick, who have pneumonia, who have to be in a hospital, have to be monitored. They have complex illnesses that require multidisciplinary teams. So, for example, we sit in a musculoskeletal building. If I can't get, we employ our own anesthesiologist. Okay, good. There's one of the pieces. Sometimes we deal with orthopedic infections. One of the things I talked about just yesterday to a colleague of ours is, hey, would you ever think about providing infectious disease services to the Indiana Orthopedic Institute as a consultant? And he was like, I would think about that. I was like, so now if we can do moderate complexity stuff here, the massive stuff that you would need 5 specialists to see a patient, that's going to be relegated to a hospital. But those patients are going to be very sick, multi-organ failure, all kinds of things. So I think if you take all of those in the state, in a state, you could put them in a big hospital. That'd fill up the beds. Another pandemic, if that happens, that's when the hospital beds will be utilized. But I think outside of that, the other thing that's coming, Dennis, that is on everybody's mind, the when I did a lot of in my role as president of the American Association of Hip and Knee Surgeons, I spent a fair amount of time in Washington D.C. and did a lot of advocacy work there. And one of the things that's on the table to pay for healthcare, because under President Bush Senior, I believe it was him or Clinton, I can't remember. They put in a rule called that's budget. There's called a rule called budget neutrality, where you can't let healthcare escalate, the cost of healthcare escalate too high what the government pays without having offsets that pay for it. So they try and keep the amount of that budget relatively neutral. It rises with the cost of inflation and other things, but in general, neutral. So they don't let healthcare spending get out of control. The way they pay for these increases, the first one is by removing the inpatient only list. And that saves the government healthcare our billions per year, because they can now shift the government's Medicare is an insurance. So if they can pay the Indiana Orthopedic Institute, X amount of dollars for hip and knee replacement, then they're not paying 2X to a large hospital. That's government savings. So they'll use that to help pay for health increasing healthcare costs. It's just moving money around. The next big thing is something called site neutrality. Site neutrality, not many people understand or know what that is. And it goes back to my Subway and Jimmy John's conversation. If you go get an EKG in a hospital and you get an EKG in this building, we bill the Medicare and the commercial payers very differently. And theirs is 2 to 3 to 4 times more expensive for the exact same product. It's an EKG machine.
Yeah.
It's right.
Identical. Yeah.
Identical machine. So why would you as a consumer pay 4 times for your Subway sandwich in an adjacent shop that is the exact same meat, the exact same bread? Why would you do that? Well, everyone's sort of saying, yeah, we shouldn't. If site neutrality goes through, which we believe, there's components of it trickling down already, all the prices will be the same
For
every single
any
one.
of these like in and out procedures that you're talking about, they'll all be
An
the same.
EKG, lab work, it's all the same. It all goes to the same price. The hospitals use the 2 to 3X price they get to subsidize all their expenses. Now, the hospital, if I'm a hospital executive, you know what I'm going to yell and scream? We take care of all the poor. We take care of all the Medicaid. True. They get subsidies from the government for that. What they're not saying is the layer of bureaucracy, the bureaucratic bloat. And you and I have talked about that. I write about it on the Incision Point. One of the most recent studies said that's about $280 billion of waste in U.S. healthcare. Right? Stop paying 4 times for an EKG and remove the bureaucratic bloat and put that money back to the doctor-patient relationship. You and I both know, if you're a patient, when you come in, you don't need 18 administrators looking at how the doctor's treating you. You need the doctor and their education and their training trying to heal you. And everything that interferes with that is bureaucratic bloat. Does there need to be some regulation? Of course there does. Does there need to be some oversight? Of course there does. But it doesn't need to be 280 billion worth of it. It's
Yeah.
gotten out of control. It's a monster that fed itself over and over and over on that 4X for the same EKG rather than 1x.
They must be
So
feeling like it must be coming quick. Because I'll tell you, like in Mexico, like I had some stuff over the last few months, and I went to get an EKG, and you go in. I have my blood work, and they have packages here. And, it's like uh, I want to say it was like 600 pesos, which was like $30, and I had all my labs. It was like
yeah,
30
oh yeah,
dollars.
that's
And then I was like, oh, and they were like, we better check your heart. And I was like, cool. So we did an EKG, and I think it was like maybe it was like 400 pages, like $20. And so it's a perfect example of, and it's the same machine that they use in the US.
yeah,
But
right. Why would you go? Why would you go if you were at a hospital next door, or you were some other? Why would they charge 40 pesos and you're only paying 20? It should be for a machine that does a test. It should be the same.
it
Listen,
should be
getting
the same. Yeah, so it's the same thing as like buying a bottle of water at Walmart is like 50 cents, but at a baseball game it's $8. So it
the
depends where you
system,
buy.
the system, the system got overly complicated with people making a bunch of money in it,
It's all
and
money and politics, and it all gets into politics. So is
that's
this
correct.
all this like this what these things that you're talking about, these regulations being put into place,
Yeah.
these procedures being removed from the list, that is this coming down from things like MAGA and or make or from the
Oh,
administration?
make America healthy again.
Yeah,
Make America
all
the
that stuff.
Maha. Yeah. Well, it's coming from Washington D.C. and it's also coming from the insurance companies, the health insurance companies. The both of them want to pay less for healthcare. The issue that we're having, and they're it's all related to both politics and the economy.
Sure.
So the health insurance companies sell their products to employers. In Indiana, one of the largest employers is Eli Lilly, the drug company. Well, they have thousands and thousands of employees that they have to insure because that's what part of the benefit you get as
Oh,
an
right.
employee.
Yeah.
And so what they're telling Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and other payers, whoever their deals with, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up, but they're telling, as an example, but they're telling when they go look to buy health insurance, it's a competitive market. They're saying they look at United or Blue Cross Blue Shield or Aetna or whoever. They're saying, we can't pay this much for all of our employees, right? Well, this is draining the business. We need to make more profits. It's a publicly traded company. Our shareholders want more money,
Sure.
right? That's the economy. It's capitalism. And then Anthem saying, well, this is what we have to pay because the hospitals are gouging us. So you all have to pay for hospitals and your members need care. It's all related to a financial ecosystem that's getting compressed, and it became too complicated with too much money. And now healthcare is too expensive on one side, margins are on the other, and a government that got too big with a current administration is trying to right size that and bring down taxpayer dollars. It's all feeding the same. It's all feeding the same thing, which means making a healthcare system that's simple and removing all the excess out of it, which I'm a fan of. I mean,
Yeah, sure. It's going to
I'm
take
caught in the
time.
middle of it. Yeah, I'm caught in the middle of it. Site neutrality hasn't happened yet, so the hospitals are still making more money than we are. We're on the low end of it. We're trying to make sure we run a good business and provide great care to patients at a lower cost. But I see where it's going, but it hasn't hit here yet. I mean, like we're still not making as much money as hospitals, not even close. So but I believe we are where the world is going, and all the signs are suggesting that. We're just not reaping the benefits of the market shift yet, and we will over time, I believe.
Yeah, it's a
Definitely.
time thing. I mean, it took generations. It took decades to get to where we are in this broken system.
Right.
Probably really the last probably 20 years of
That's right.
this type of
That's right.
abuse of the system. I think that's
Yeah,
what I
there's a
call it. I call it an abuse of the system. It all
there's
comes
a
down to politics.
chart. It does. There's this chart that physicians show frequently that you can find on the internet, which is there's two lines. It's the growth of hospital administrators in the United States and the growth of physicians. And one line has a really low curve like this, which is the physicians, and the other line's like this. And it's the growth of hospital administrators. And I say administrators generally. all the bureaucratic bloat. Do we have to have administrators? Of course we do. We have to have good ones, and we have to have. There are ones that I I work really well with, and I appreciate and respect, and they're a vital part of the ecosystem, healthcare ecosystem. But it got a little bit out of control because there's a lot of waste there, and it's quietly shaping there. I can tell you right now, all the healthcare systems that I interact with on a regular basis, they're all right sizing right now. They're just doing it quietly, consolidating jobs, facilitating early retirements. They're not doing huge rifts, right?
Well, there's
The
still going to be
layoffs.
another problem. I'm curious your thoughts on this because there is another problem. Like, and this is like hanging out with you for the last 8 months or whatever
Yeah.
has been interesting. It's taught me a lot, also.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, you
Yeah,
taught me a
no,
lot too.
yeah, but it's been really interesting because I always thought my opinion of the broken healthcare system is I agree with you. Like in Colorado, they built the is it Anschutz or what's that center? There's a huge
Where is
center,
it?
billions of dollars. They've been building it for
In
20 years
Colorado?
in Colorado in Aurora.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's this massive. You can see it from the highway, and
Yeah.
it is just such a massive center. And I always say it's like it's because the population of the country, whatever it's, I don't know, I want to say doubled, but it's significantly
Yeah.
bigger, and the rate of people getting sicker with the processed foods and the diabetes, the heart disease,
Yeah.
all these things
Yeah.
happening. So I think I always was stuck on that, and I think that's a huge part of it. Like the only way to really fix the broken healthcare system is to remove the problems that are causing the health problems, right? If you remove,
I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some truth to that, Dennis. We're gonna go back to the simple days you see in the old Western movies
yeah,
where when the patients were sick, where were they sick? At home.
yeah, that was it. And the
They didn't have
doctor
huge hospital.
goes,
The doctor came. Right.
yeah,
So we're seeing an emergence of concierge medicine.
yeah,
I have really good colleagues that are great primary care doctors that have said, heck with it. I'm out of these large conglomerates. I'm going to do so these concierge groups are exploding. You pay a fee, $1,000 a year, and your doctor is at your beck and call. They'll come to your house. You call them on the weekend. Fabulous model.
that's
Fabulous
really
model. And
interesting.
oh yeah, it's coming fast. So we're going to go back to, it's almost funny, but we're going to go back to the future a little bit. We're going to go back to see when you're sick, if you don't need to have a hospital, you can be sick at home. You can throw up in your own toilet, right? You
Yeah,
can go, you dress your own wound, but
yeah,
you don't have to be in a hospital to do that.
yeah.
You
No,
know?
that's so interesting. The last a couple of weeks ago, I was sick a little bit too. You know about it,
Yeah.
um, but I had I wanted to get some hydration, some IV, and Ceci, my wife, had a friend who of a friend who came to do this. This is what he does. What did you call it? Uh, uh, where the doctor comes to the house. What's it called?
Oh, concierge medicine. They do
Concierge.
some
Yeah,
concierge.
he
Yeah.
came in and he was a former military nurse, and he came in with all of his equipment, his sterile equipment on his backpack. It was like a medical
Yeah.
backpack, and he had everything that you could possibly need to do
Correct.
anything. Yeah, and
Well, that's what.
he pulled out a tripod. He put up an IV, and he had my IV fluid hanging. I was in my
Yeah.
bed. He put it in, and I got hydrated right in my own bed. And I think it
Well,
was like
you
a
didn't need
hundred
a
bucks.
huge hospital to do that.
No, it was $100, and it was great. He
That's
put
my
vitamin.
point.
He's like, we went over what was wrong. He put some vitamin B in. We did this and this and this, and then he checked my blood pressure. He checked all my vitals,
Yeah.
and I was wrapped up. I was hydrated an hour later, and it was $100.
Yeah. I think this is an exciting time for innovation in healthcare. I know everybody's stressed out about it, but when there's this sort of rapid ecosystem shifts and a little bit of chaos in the tried and true systems, it's ripe for innovation. It's ripe for models like you're talking about, for concierge medicine. I mean, that's what hospice was. People were dying of cancer, and they were like, okay, there's nothing else we can do. We'll get them out of the hospital, make room for well, and all that was get people out so the beds would free up so they could make more money.
Yeah, yeah,
Right? Which, okay, fine. they're saying is, yeah, get the low cost out, give room for more paying people who we might be able to save. Okay, I think it's a reason. I think hospice is great
Yeah.
for that reason. But
Yeah, so
again,
this is interesting.
it's
It's
at
good
home.
to see. It's good to see it. It's happening. Have you ever heard of the book, The Fourth Turning?
I have
So
not.
it's really interesting. It was I forget when it was written. It was decades ago, but it talks about how the world is cyclical, right? We go through these cycles, and the at the end of the fourth turning, we go back to the first cycle, one, two, three, four, back,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's about 20 years each. The first turning was the end of the World War, so 80
yeah,
years ago, whatever, and then it's real peaceful for like 20 years, and then it starts to become a little more turbulent, which was like the 60s, and then in
yeah.
the 80s, 90s, and then things were good, but it was starting to get more turbulent. And now they say we're in the fourth level right now, where everything is just chaos, war, like falling apart. And then we're
I
at
think,
the
and then it'll,
and
yeah,
then we'll go
it'll.
through. But this whole hospital, everything we're talking about now, sounds like this is all part of it. I agree, to where it's been so broken for so long, and people are really starting to be. I mean, we're getting to this point with inflation. It's like, who can afford to?
Oh, that's my point. That's my point. You know what would be I was just thinking about that. It would be a great social post is like showing the old Western doctor at home, right? And a patient's home in an old, cabin in the
In
1800s or
1920.
whatever, right? Oh yeah, yeah, 1920. And then showing the guy who came to your place with the backpack doing the exact same thing, 100 years later or
Yeah, it would
200
be. It
years
would be
later.
do 1926 and
And
2026.
226, it'd be absolutely.
Full
It's
circle.
fabulous.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think it's better too. And I think with, AI and all the
That's what
technology.
I was going to say. Technology can now enable that. The delivery of healthcare closer to home, not in big mega hospitals. When you think think about if you're a patient, put yourself in the patient. These hospitals aren't built for patients. They're built for the institutions and their self-interest. If you're a patient and you're headed into one of these buildings, do you feel calm? Do you feel warmth? Do you no, you're terrified. It's cold, it's big. You as a human being who's at most whatever, the tallest person is 6'5", you're looking up and this thing's a mile in the air. It's a big cold building. I'd rather be in my home, right?
Absolutely.
If I'm sick, I'd rather be in my home. If I'm recovering, I'd rather be in my home. And we're flipping that paradigm patient by patient, Dennis. Every time I see patients in clinic, they're like, "Well, I'm having a hip or knee. I should be." 10 years ago, they're like, "I have to be in a hospital, right? 3 days. I can't be at home. It's too unsafe." We've after COVID helped us. We flipped the paradigm. Now I don't ever have to tell anybody that. Maybe one in 200 patients that I booked for hip and knee replacement. So I saw 60 patients in clinic yesterday. I signed up probably 15 people for hip and knee replacement. And I said, okay, surgery takes an hour. You'll be in the recovery room for about 2 hours and you'll be on your way home after that. And 10 years ago, people would be like, what are you? Everybody yesterday was like, okay, yep, sounds great. Got your home care situated. Your family's going to be there. Yep, yep. That is the way of the future in
Awesome.
healthcare. It
And thank
is.
God.
And thank God, I'd rather be going home to my wife and my kids, right, rather than going to a hospital,
A
right?
cold, sterile
Um,
hospital. Yeah, absolutely. And so the point is that we're going to need the hospitals, of course, but for the
we
terminally
do.
ill, the people that need to be there, that have real
Need to
problems.
be there. And I think I hate to say it, but rather the economics are going to help sort it out. The economic pressures are going to help sort it out, and the physicians have to be. I think the physicians have to take a leadership role in this because patient safety has to be paramount. So the physicians have to lean in, and the systems have to pay the physicians for their leadership time. So I say physicians lean in, become leaders, and help this migration out of the hospitals, and keep determine which patients should remain in the hospitals, and and those hospitals need to be taken care of by the government, in my opinion, because they're not going to be as profitable probably, but the government should take care of them, and that's what you pay taxes for, right? Pay taxes for military, pay taxes for roads. You should pay taxes for hospitals. I have no problem, and they should get not for
100%.
profit status, but don't make billions of dollars off a not-for-profit status. This is, I mean, think
That's
about it.
interesting. I never heard that. So the taxes should actually go towards should pay for health insurance so you can go to the hospital. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
for the hospital, for catastrophic stuff, or even your tax. I don't mind paying my tax dollars for a hospital if that's where I have to go for multidisciplinary care that's going to lose a bunch of money. I'm fine with that. But if I have to have a hip or knee replacement, just like I don't need to go to an expensive hospital for that. Put that
Oh,
out.
I agree.
But see, here's the problem. So in our group, I take Medicaid, I take Medicare, and I take all payers. I even take cash pay. Everybody here. But I get taxed. I'm a for-profit enterprise. The hospitals have billed themselves as not-for-profits. They don't pay
Right.
taxes.
Yeah, it's
But we all
insane.
treat the same people.
Yeah.
But how do I get such an unfair advantage where I get taxed and I'm taking Medicaid and whatever? That is crap, in my opinion. That's total crap. Now they say, oh, we give all these things to community or whatever. Well, if I had $10 billion in my bank account, I could give to the community too. But I
Right.
don't. I don't. I'm a for-profit
Yeah.
enterprise, so I get taxed accordingly.
It's
So
definitely a broken system. So you
it
think that
is.
we'll start seeing the decline of these big, huge centers soon?
Yeah, site neutrality is the government's. I mean, that's going to force it, right? That site neutrality is going to cripple a number of these institutions because all of a sudden their reimbursements are going to plummet.
Interesting. So what do you think will happen to these big mega centers? It'll be like shopping malls, so they're turning into like.
Well, they'll be okay because that's where but then all the ones that are going to go under are the smaller ones in the rural communities. They don't have the bank accounts that the big ones do. The big ones will survive. They will, and they'll lean into it, and they're savvy, and they got resources, and they'll lobby, and they'll get more tax dollars, and that's fine. I think that's appropriate. The smaller ones will go under.
So
There's
how
already
is it?
hospitals closing right now. If you look on Becker's is a healthcare distribution that I read all the time. Scott Becker is the founder. He's a great guy. We interviewed him for one of the other podcasts I do. And Becker's shows every week now, or every day you get it, but about every week I see 3 or 4 hospitals in the United States close right now. It's happening.
So then,
or not offer their services.
So how is it? So what is it? So they say that they're a not-for-profit organization, but
Mhm.
at some point, will that always stand true too? Because they are for profit. I mean, at what point does that?
Well, that's the whole. There's a lot of debate going on right now about that because as practices like mine compete against them in the same market, I take Medicare. We're no different. I get taxed heavily. They don't. Is that fair? I would say no.
Of course not.
They're saying they have because I do with musculoskeletal health. I don't have all the costs that they do. To some degree, that's fair. I think to some degree that's fair. But should it be such a wide discrepancy? No, I don't think so. And
No,
I
but
think that sometimes they hide behind not-for-profit status, and their CEOs make multi-million-dollar contracts. And look, I'm also not saying that a CEO shouldn't make millions of dollars for running in a huge organization. I'm not trying to devalue that either.
of course.
I'm not. But at some point, a free market has to establish value, right? You need to walk into your Subway and Jimmy John's and really say, am I getting the same sandwich for $5? Or if one's charging $10 compared to $5, is that sandwich really $5 better?
Right.
The free market has to assign, in my opinion, and this is what I believe, because I believe in the ecosystem of the United States, it's where I was born and raised. I believe in democratic freedom and I believe in capitalism. So the free market should establish value. Let it play out. But when you get government intervention and the government says, "Oh, they're not for profit," "Oh, they are," it takes free market and starts to squash it. Right
It's
now,
totally right.
ironically, the free market's starting to squeeze its way back into it anyway, because the largest health and care insurer in the world is CMS, Medicare. So
Right.
they're realizing their own oppression, right? And so they're inching towards. That's what that site neutrality will do. It puts more back in the free market. We can all compete on the level playing field. Now
Interesting.
we're still not. We'll still be for profit. They'll still be not for profit and get those tax advantages. But at least the consumers will have the same. An EKG and an outpatient will be the same as an EKG at a hospital. Finally, that's good for the consumers.
So what's the message here then for consumers or people that are like approaching their, like, who decides? Is this somebody that says, is this like a referral based thing, or they see a podcast, they're like, oh, there's Dr. Meneghini. Oh, he has our ambulatory surgery center. I didn't even know about those. I thought I had to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Is this how you see it? Like,
No, yeah. You can be I would tell you, a healthcare consumer, you should spend as much time learning about your healthcare choices as you do when you're going to go buy your computer or go buy your car.
absolutely.
Now,
Yeah.
it's complicated because the system's not the same, but it's becoming similar as the deductibles get larger. You you should lean into what is your in network, out of network, where can I go get if I have a choice of 5 places to get a hip or knee replacement or a shoulder replacement or an ACL reconstruction, I should look at what those places are. Now, some of the systems are doing what's called narrow networks, where they try and capture you, and then they won't let you go to a place like ours. They force you into another one, or they won't approve your surgery. And it's just a weird way of sort of capturing patients. But I think the more you look at what plans you're in, the more you understand where you can have your health care, the more the free capitalistic market will play out. And the deductibles are getting so large, patients are doing it on their own now anyway.
Right.
It's incredible to see. We're seeing more people right now than I've ever seen in my career come to us with no insurance and they say we're paying cash.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating. So think about that. For a hip and knee replacement, we charge, well, I don't know if I can say so. That was our own charge. We charge about $25,000 for a hip and knee replacement all in.
Right.
That's way less than a hospital. Way less.
Really? Well, that's
Oh,
not
way less.
wait. It's way less than the hospital charges the insurance company
And they'll collect more than that too.
from
Oh
the
yeah.
patient. But from the patient, not from the patient.
No, it depends what their deductibles are.
Oh,
But
right.
we're seeing but that tells you the difference. How they're willing to say, I'm willing to, if I need a hip replacement, I'll save up for a couple of years because my high deductible plan is already, let's say my deductible is $15,000.
Crazy.
What I'm saying is we're entering a time where people are doing the math and they might actually save for a $25,000 hip or knee replacement now because their deductibles are getting so high. It's
And their insurance
fascinating.
is already 10,000, and then a deductible is 15,000.
Right. You see what I'm saying?
And then once you do that, you have like existing conditions, so your insurance premium will go up. They'll jack
Right.
that
So
up.
people are starting to do the math now, and they're like, and employers. The reason Mark Cuban is everywhere is he is trying to do the exact same thing, bypassing the insurance company and going right to the employer and saying, we'll have a free market exchange. You don't have to pay the insurance company all this stuff. You get a hip or knee replacement for 25 grand. You get this, X, Y, Z. And he's trying to do his own free market. That's what the cost plus was the first part. Now he's starting this in Texas, which is kind of like healthcare plus. He's doing the same thing. That's what his whole shtick is taking all this complexity out. The deductibles, the premiums, all this stuff was the gain. But we're seeing patients doing it on their own already. It's wild. And if
Interesting.
I'm seeing it at an expensive procedure like mine, I mean, because hip and knee replacement is not cheap because of the implants and everything else. If I'm seeing it already, and I'm seeing it, at procedures that are less than that, they're seeing it all the time.
Absolutely. And so do you think his efforts are working?
I think he's gonna make some traction. Oh, I do. Yeah, I do. He's got the backing of the current administration too. Trump, the whole Trump RX thing, they hated each other during the political season. Now they're besties over their pharmaceutical companies that they're doing whatever. I mean, but I think he's going to make some. He'll definitely he's a market disruptor. He'll make some gains for sure.
That's good.
Because it's broken, right? Remember what I said? It goes back to what I said earlier. When the healthcare chaos is so bad, and the consumers' heads are spinning, it's ripe for innovation.
Absolutely. And that's what happened with all the great innovation. Uber, it was like they took a broken taxi system that's been broken for 100 years. The dirty cars, the rude, the overpriced, all that stuff. And they created a model that was everything that wasn't that, and they won.
It's awesome. Love it. It's a great model.
Yeah.
Great,
Awesome.
great model.
Well, this has been a great talk. Any closing arguments? Anything you wanted to share with the people that are curious about what you do or how to go about?
No, I appreciate you hosting it, Dennis. And for people who want to learn more, follow me on LinkedIn, and we write a really, I think, a really compelling newsletter called The Incision Point that you can find on Substack and LinkedIn. Which more of these conversations more in depth. So if people are interested, look there. And Dennis, thanks for hosting. It was great as always to chat with you, and have a great rest of your time in Boston.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks,
Talk to you
everybody.
soon. Bye. Oh.